Yesterday I talked about The Weekenders, what I thought about it, and at the end of the video in passing I mentioned the show Recess, which is another show that came out around this time. It's one I watched a lot more, it's one I had more fond memories of. I actually have it on the computer right in front of me. I watched a bunch of episodes before talking about it, and it's still a really fun, really engaging, really likable show. It was good then, and it's great now. Man, I love this show. For those of you who only have a vague memory of it, only heard of it in passing, I seriously doubt you have never seen it if you're watching this video, but for those of you who don't know, it's essentially about a group of kids and their daily lives at the playground. And the world of this playground is so fun. It's very imaginative. They have a different hierarchy, they have different cliques, they have groups of kids that have different goals. And what I like about the main characters, even though it focuses a lot on their ringleader, it's not particularly about him alone. It's very much an ensemble show, and the group can have individual personalities and the group can work together. I love that these characters, while they are very tropey in many ways, you know, you got the jock, the smart girl, the leader, but they're more than that. They're more than just their stock characters, they're more than just their stereotypes, and they regularly break out of their stereotypical roles and do other things with their lives. For example, the smart girl character Gretchen, she has episodes where she wants to be good at something else. She has an episode where she wants to be good at a sport and she takes up yo-yo. And yes, that is one I watched ahead of time. But I also remember an episode where she wants to be pretty and wants to be included and wants to feel popular for a change. And I feel like, yeah, I can see a girl like her going through that. And it feels very natural, very honest, in a way that it never felt with The Weekenders. Doing a compare and contrast, mostly I just want to talk about Recess, but I'll do a very brief compare and contrast, informal. The characters in Recess all feel like real people. Part of it's because they were based on real people. The creators based all the characters off people they knew growing up, people they knew at different parts of their lives. And that definitely comes through. It also helps that the characters do have personalities and lives and interests outside of their stereotypical stock character roles. And again, stock roles are not bad. Stock characters are not inherently bad. They're a good jumping off point. But these characters feel far more fleshed out, even if they do also feel familiar. And they still have very defined personalities, and they still work off each other in different ways. But they're all still really, really good as a group. They have a really good chemistry. The voice acting's very good. The designs are very fun. The show also feels very nostalgic without feeling dated. And what I mean by that is, when I look at the show, it does have a bit of an older feel to it, but at the same time, because the personality comes through so much, it's got so much life and so much energy and so much creativity, it feels timeless in a way. It feels like there was a very honest portrayal, very much a sincerity and a passion that comes through. And it definitely feels like these are characters that could have existed in the 50s or the 70s or 10 years ago or today. Because you'll still have kids who deal with being the new kid or dealing with having an interest that's not conventional or trying something different. There's still, I think it's the extra energy and the details that really make it shine and really make it come to life. That again, and the passion, it feels like it's coming from a more natural, passionate place than something like The Weekenders. And Recess had a lot of life lessons too, but I'm more interested in these characters going through that. I'm more interested in watching them struggle. I'm more interested in what they're doing. And the stories themselves are still fun and unique. I like the relationships they have with each other, and I like the relationships they have with their antagonists, and I like the relationships they have with the rest of the playground. Of course, you have King Bob, who, because he's the oldest, he was in 6th grade, which I will admit that's a little strange to me because elementary school for me growing up was kindergarten through 4th grade, but I know a lot of schools will even include 5th and 6th grade in there. For me, 5th and 6th grade was counted as middle school. So that's interesting to see how different schools work. Again, there's so much imagination that comes out. It doesn't feel like it's just about the lessons or just about one type of person. It feels like there's a variety of characters who you can follow, and I like the variety and personality that comes through. Gus will be very different from Mikey, and they'll have their own different skills, and you can continue learning about these characters, and they all feel very different. They talk very differently. And if you like one character more than another, there's still plenty of good dialogue and good episodes focused around that particular character. And I feel like another fun antagonist they have a character, Randall, who's a snitch character. I feel like most kids growing up knew that one kid who was a snitch who would only try to get people in trouble just so they could get a sense of power from authority figures, whether or not they really had it or not. Randall definitely reminds me of some people I knew. So I can laugh at that. I feel like even if you didn't go to school with someone exactly like any of the characters, you still know the kind of people they're talking about. There's still something very familiar about these characters. And they all feel like they have individual personalities. So it's still a ton of fun to watch. I love the location. A lot of episodes will take place at the school. That's the main location. But once in a while, they'll go outside of that. You'll see the characters' homes, or they'll be in a snack shop, or they'll be visiting a neighbor. But it's still a very fun, interesting location. It has this... I feel like I'm a part of that group when I watch the show. I also feel like... I guess because I'm watching it as an adult, I simultaneously feel like I'm part of this group, but I'm also nostalgically looking back, even though I don't remember childhood as being a particularly great thing all the time. But even then, they deal with some of that. They deal with the harsher moments, but they still don't... It's not depressing whenever they deal with something a little harsher, but at the same time, they don't sugarcoat it either. There's still so much fun you can have with these characters. You can always learn something new about them. You can always see what they're trying, but they're also not so out of character. You know who these characters are. There's still a sense of stability that's very clear cut. And I remember the movie really, really well, too. When I watched this show and Codename Kids Next Door. Now, Codename Kids Next Door was my favorite one growing up, but Recess is a very similar type of show that really showed the importance of childhood and very much told you how you should appreciate it because you're not going to get that back. It definitely got me thinking a lot about time, particularly this speech that Principal Prickly, who is sometimes an antagonist but sometimes on their side, and even then, when he's an antagonist, he's portrayed as a stick in the mud, but he's also doing his job, and he does very much care about these kids. He has a speech in the movie about how you don't realize how good you got it because when you grow up, you have to deal with responsibilities and tougher things, and you don't get the freedom you had as a child. And a lot of these good times where you can be so carefree and not have to worry about certain things in life, that's gonna go away. And that speech shook me to my core as a kid. I'm like, oh my god, I gotta appreciate this. So it did its job very, very well. And it has so much heart to it. It definitely has so much fondness for childhood, definitely respects childhood and kids. you know, the good stuff, but also the selfish stuff. So, I mean, kids can be very selfish and kids can be very cruel in this show. I would say it didn't show the harshness as much as something like Kids Next Door, Ed, Edd n Eddy, but it was still there, and it still added to the realism of the show. It feels very, very real. I realize this is a rant, much more rambling than I did yesterday, but it's still a really good show, and as you can tell, really brings me joy talking about it, because this is a show that has a lot of the good stuff of old and new kids shows. It definitely has an older feel to it. Something about the animation, even though they tried not to be too hip or contemporary, which is great, they tried to make it as timeless as they could, there was something still a little bit old school about it, but I like that. In a way, I really like. Something about the clothes they wear and where they meet up and some of the toys they play with feel very classic, but still in a way where I definitely remember it. I guess there's a timelessness, that's what I'll say. When I say nostalgic, there's a timelessness to this show, because some things that kids experience are still going to hold true, regardless of if you grew up in the 50s or the 90s or you're growing up today. Some perspectives do stay similar even if the tools and the toys change. But it's still got the best parts of childhood in there. The fun, the imagination, the creativity, the passion, the heart. Because there's a lot of that in childhood too. I guess it's also innocent in a way. It's not one that has a ton of dirty jokes in there, but it still has a couple of fun bonuses in there too, that when you're older and smarter, well, hopefully smarter, you can pick up on. Just fun references, fun plots, fun storylines. Overall, Recess is a great show. It's a great feel-good show, and that's the best way I can describe it. It's very much a feel-good show. It captures a lot of the best stuff about being a kid. The imagination, the heart, the passion. And that's why this show's great.